Hey Steelers Nation, before we dive into today's exciting updates, let me remind you, this team is constantly striving for excellence, pushing through challenges to bring the best results to you, the fans. And let's face it, we know how much you live and breathe Steelers football. If you're pumped to hear about the potential return of some key players for this crucial game against the Ravens, smash that like button right now and subscribe to the channel for more exclusive Steelers news. Now, let's talk about what's brewing in Pittsburgh as we prepare for Saturday's monumental AFC North showdown against the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers have been battling injuries left and right, especially during this grueling three-game stretch over just 10 days. Players like George Pickens, hamstring, TJ Watt, ankle, and Dante Jackson, back, have all been sidelined at various points, leaving significant gaps in both the offense and defense. Let's not sugarcoat it. The absence of these key contributors has been felt deeply. Last week's loss to the Eagles was tough. A 27-13 defeat, where the offense sputtered and the defense struggled to contain Philly's high-powered attack, wasn't what we wanted to see. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. Head coach Mike Tomlin gave us some hope on Monday when he said, "The door's ajar for those guys." He specifically mentioned Pickens and Watt, stating their status as questionable for Sunday's game. Steelers fans, imagine this. George Pickens lining up again as our #1 wide receiver and TJ Watt back wreaking havoc on the Ravens' offense. Doesn't that sound like the boost we need? Let's focus on Pickens for a moment. We all know the passing game has struggled in his absence. The Steelers' 163 passing yards against the Eagles were their lowest total since 2010, and you could see it in Pickens' face on the sidelines during the Browns game. He's desperate to get back out there and help his team. HBO's Hard Knocks captured a raw moment when Pickens told Coach Tomlin, "I want to play so bad, boy." Tomlin's response, "It's that football life." Pickens suffered a grade 2 hamstring strain, and while he could have played in a limited capacity last week, the coaching staff made the tough call to sit him to avoid further injury. With the division title on the line this Saturday, it might be time for Pickens to make his triumphant return. But what do you think, Steelers Nation? Should we risk bringing him back this week, or is it better to let him fully heal before the playoffs? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's shift gears to our defensive MVP, TJ Watt. Watt is nursing an ankle injury from the Eagles game, and while he's been walking comfortably, his status remains uncertain. Former NFL team doctor David J. Chow initially feared Watt's injury could be severe, but updated analysis brought good news. It's not as bad as it looked. Still, with Watt being such a critical part of our defense, do we risk bringing him back too soon? Steelers fans, think about this. Watt at 80% might still be better than most players at 100%. But would you rather see him sit out against Baltimore to ensure he's ready for the playoffs? Let's hear your take. Another key player in question is Dante Jackson. His back injury left a hole in our secondary last week, and while James Pierre stepped in, the results weren't ideal. Pierre allowed a touchdown, and the Eagles capitalized on mismatches in coverage. Tomlin remains confident in his backups, including Corey Trice Jr., who has been waiting for his moment. Tomlin stated, "Whether it's James Pierre or Corey Trice, both guys have delivered and delivered to a satisfactory level." Steelers Nation, this is where your opinion matters. Do you believe the depth in our secondary is strong enough to handle the Ravens' offense if Jackson can't play? Or should the front office be looking for reinforcements? This game against the Ravens isn't just another matchup, it's a battle for the AFC North title and a chance to solidify our playoff positioning. With injuries piling up and a tough loss to the Eagles fresh in our minds, the Steelers have a lot to prove. But this is Steelers football. This is what we live for, the drama, the grind, and the passion. We've seen this team rise above adversity time and time again. Do you think they can do it again this Saturday? The Steelers punched their ticket to the playoffs, thanks to key losses by the Indianapolis Colts and Miami Dolphins. While Week 15 didn't end in our favor after a 27-13 loss to the Eagles, the bigger picture is clear. We're in. but the work is far from over. Pittsburgh is battling for AFC North supremacy. A win against the Baltimore Ravens this Saturday would seal the division and give the Steelers their first home playoff game since the 2020 season. Imagine Acrisure Stadium, packed with a sea of black and gold, roaring for the playoffs. Doesn't that send chills down your spine? But here's the kicker. The path to the Super Bowl might not be as simple as winning the division. Let's break it down. Winning the AFC North means hosting a playoff game, but it could also mean facing tougher opponents early on, like the Buffalo Bills. And let's be real, the Bills have been a force this season. On the other hand, if the Steelers land in the wild card spot, they could find themselves in Houston for the first round, facing the Texans instead of the Bills or Chiefs. That's a much friendlier opening matchup. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Early wins in September against the Broncos and Chargers might end up saving us now. If those two teams are tied with the Steelers at the end of the season, Pittsburgh holds the tiebreaker, likely securing the 5th seed. What does that mean for the playoffs? A potential path through Houston and Kansas City instead of Buffalo? Definitely something to think about. Steelers Nation, what do you think? Would you rather win the division and risk facing tougher teams, or take the wild card route and aim for a more favorable matchup? Let me know in the comments below. The Steelers' December schedule was always going to be one of the toughest in the league. Last week's loss to Philadelphia extended our winless streak in the city since 1965, but it's important to remember how much this team has accomplished. We're navigating a playoff picture loaded with powerhouse teams like the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens. It's hard to imagine a scenario where Pittsburgh doesn't have to face Buffalo at some point, but stranger things have happened in the NFL. What's crucial is that the Steelers have given themselves options. Wins against Denver and Los Angeles in September now serve as a safety net, keeping multiple playoff scenarios in play. And while every fan wants to see the Steelers dominate December, those early victories might prove to be the real MVPs of this season. This week's game against the Ravens is more than just a rivalry. It's about momentum, seeding, and pride. A win gives us the division title and the home playoff game we've all been waiting for. A loss? It could still work in our favor depending on how the rest of the season plays out. But let's not forget the emotional side of this matchup. Steelers versus Ravens isn't just another game. It's a battle that defines the grit, passion, and heart of this team. Steelers Nation, how confident are you in the team's ability to take down Baltimore? And do you think this year's squad has what it takes to go all the way? Here's what we know. Pickens, Watt, and Jackson are all questionable for Saturday, with their participation hinging on how practice goes this week. The team will rely on depth players like James Pierre and Corey Trice Jr. to step up if starters can't go. The Ravens are no pushover, but a win here could change everything for the Steelers heading into the postseason. So, Steelers Nation, let's hear it from you. Should Pickens return this week, or do we wait until he's 100% healthy? Can TJ Watt make an immediate impact, or is it smarter to rest him for the playoffs? Do you trust our secondary depth to get the job done if Jackson can't play? Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. Your passion fuels this team, and we want to hear every bit of it. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, here we go, Steelers.